Imagine logging into a public chat room, putting your headphones on, and just instantly being hit with the auditory equivalent of a middle school cafeteria brawl.
Right. It's just absolute chaos.
Complete chaos. Only the people screaming over each other in this room aren't fighting over lunch money. They are actively plotting to take down the government of Argentina.
And they're doing it live.
Live. And there are, what, over 5,000 people listening to them do it in real time?
Yeah, 5,000 people just hanging out in the room.
It's wild. You have insults flying at light speed. You've got this chaotic, distorted regional music blasting in the background, completely clipping the microphones.
Just blowing out the audio.
Exactly. And you have overlapping voices of people just aggressively shouting over each other, throwing around heavy street slang, calling each other cybercolos, making these bizarre, highly localized inside jokes.
It feels like a coded language if you aren't initiated.
It really does. And if you are just a normal person, scrolling through your feed and you stumble into this, your immediate instinct is to take off your headphones.
Oh, absolutely. You want out.
You dismiss it as toxic internet noise. Just a bunch of angry teenagers wasting bandwidth. But welcome to the table for another deep dive. Pull up a chair because for this one, you are right here in the room with us.
We're acting as the third detective today.
Yeah, exactly. Because this has rapidly become a real-time cyber intelligence thriller.
And that instinct, the one you mentioned, to just pull off the headphones and dismiss the noise, that's incredibly common.
I mean, I would do it.
Right, most people would. In fact, it's exactly what almost the entire professional cybersecurity apparatus did.
They just tuned it out.
They completely tuned it out. They looked at the slang and the memes and the chaotic audio, and they categorized the whole thing as irrelevant.
But I'm guessing that was a mistake.
A massive mistake. And that's the mission of our analysis today, to show you the fatal flaw in that assumption.
So what actually happened in there?
Well, amidst that hours-long, seemingly unhinged audio feed, a very specific, highly lethal threat was made against the sovereign infrastructure of Argentina.
A sovereign nation. Just casually threatened in a chat room.
Casually threatened. And while the corporate analysts in their, sterile offices scoffed at the delivery method, one single, highly controversial independent analyst actually caught the signal buried deep in that noise.
And we are going to trace the anatomy of that signal. We're going to look at how a threat that was literally buried under bad reggaeton and internet trolling actually materialized into a terrifying reality for a nation-state.
Because it did materialize.
It really did. We'll explore how this singular event completely inverted the credibility of a man named Alberto Daniel Hill.
Who is a fascinating figure on his own.
Oh, absolutely. An analyst who previously survived a harrowing, wrongful imprisonment. And we're going to break down the sheer psychological warfare of what is happening right now, tonight.
This is the craziest part to me.
Right. Because this exact same analyst has just been cordially invited to step back into the very digital gladiator arena that recently destroyed a high-profile corporate hacker.
It's a masterclass in modern digital asymmetry.
It really is.
Like, we're looking at the total collapse of traditional digital sovereignty here, and the weaponization of public forums by actors who understand human psychology just as well as they understand network architecture.
So to understand how all of this connects, we need to put you right back in that crowded, dirty digital dive bar.
Right into the noise.
Yeah, let's look at the actual environment where this all started. So the primary audio file we're analyzing comes from an X space.
What used to be called Twitter Spaces.
Right. And it's titled Bombitas del Gobierno.
Which translates to little government bombs.
Little government bombs. And the environment here is fundamentally a decentralized Latin American cyber underground.
That's the best way to describe it.
And this space was hosted by a network that refers to themselves internally as OpFees.
Short for Operation Phase.
Operation Phase. Or sometimes they go by the Haydoff network.
And the psychology and the structure of this group are just paramount to understanding why they're so dangerous.
How so? Like, how are they structured?
Well, they do not operate like a traditional financially motivated ransomware gang.
So it's not just about money for them.
No, not purely. They operate with this pseudo-military, almost cartel-inspired digital hierarchy.
Wow.
Yeah. The individual hosting this massive 5,000-person space is an account operating under the handle @Bazito7.
Good.
And his bio, it doesn't say like lead developer or head of operations or anything corporate like that.
What does it say?
It explicitly claims the title second owner de la op phase.
Second owner. Like he
Yeah.
literally owns the gang.
Exactly. It's a completely performative, territorial flex.
Claiming ownership of a digital hate mob like it's a piece of physical turf.
It is entirely territorial. I mean, they possess a deep internal lexicon designed to identify in-group loyalty and out-group targets.
Like gang colors, but with words.
Right. Members will frequently put the prefix off in their display names to signal their affiliation.
Ah, okay. From the hate-off network.
Exactly. And they openly discuss having a Brazo Armado.
Which means an armed wing.
An armed wing. But in this context, the foot soldiers aren't carrying rifles.
So what are they doing?
Their entire function is to flood timelines with doxing material.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If someone crosses the leadership, the Brazo Armado goes to work releasing horrific personal pictures, IP addresses.
Private family emails.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Physical home coordinates.
That is terrifying. But critics looking at this from the outside, like specifically the certified professional corporate hackers, they tend to view this behavior pretty pejoratively, right?
Yeah, they really look down on them.
They label them cybercolos, which is essentially regional slang for low-skill, street-level digital thugs.
The corporate guys look at them and say, these are lamers. These are just script kiddies.
Right, like the assumption is that these guys don't actually know how to code complex malware.
That's the stereotype.
They just buy prepackaged exploit kits on the dark web, use basic social engineering to steal Instagram accounts, and just rely on sheer volume to overwhelm people.
Right. It's the difference between a street gang throwing rocks and a military unit launching a coordinated strike.
Exactly.
But that is such a comfortable external perception.
It makes the corporate guys feel safe.
It allows the corporate world to feel superior. But inside this specific bombitas del gobierno space, that comfortable illusion is completely shattered.
Because something shifts in the room, right?
The tone of the room suddenly shifts, the chaotic trolling and the music momentarily part, and an affiliate of a completely different entity takes the microphone.
Who is it?
A group known as the Cronus Mafia.
And this is where the temperature in the room just drops to absolute zero.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Cronus Mafia is not a group of cybercolos throwing digital rocks.
Far from it. When you look at the threat intelligence categorizations, the Cronus Mafia sits in the top tier of sophisticated networks.
Top tier? Like, what are we talking about here?
We're talking heavily implicated in massive multi-gigabyte data breaches, complex network exfiltration, and really high-impact extortion campaigns.
So they aren't just stealing passwords for clout.
They do not steal social media accounts for clout. They compromise enterprise networks. They quietly map the internal architecture.
They find the good stuff.
They locate the most sensitive crown jewels of a target's data and pull it all out before the victim even realizes the perimeter has been breached.
Wow. So an affiliate of this heavyweight syndicate gets on the microphone right in the middle of all this screaming and bad music and casually drops a national security threat into the void.
Just right out there in the open.
The quote from the audio is really specific. I have it right here.
Let's hear it.
The speaker says, quote, "Nuestro próximo movimiento va a ser contra las instituciones del gobierno de Argentina para que en fin de mes pues esperen ahí las filtraciones. Van a varios millones." And for our English-speaking listeners, that translates directly to, our next movement will be against the government institutions of Argentina. Expect leaks by the end of the month. You will see several millions.
They're essentially standing in a crowded, chaotic room and loudly announcing a geopolitical cyber attack.
With a timeline.
Complete with a timeline. The end of the month.
And a payload estimation. Several millions.
It's brazen.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm a government intelligence official or even just a private threat analyst, how on earth do I process that?
It's incredibly difficult.
It feels like an impossible diagnostic landscape. It's not just finding a needle in a haystack. It's finding a needle in a haystack while the haystack is actively on fire and screaming at you.
That's a great way to put it. And the ambiguity of the threat is the weapon itself.
What do you mean by that?
Well, this is the nightmare scenario for modern intelligence analysts.
Yeah.
You are forced to make an almost impossible judgment call.
Right, because you have to decide if it's real.
Exactly. Are the people in this space just low-skill lammers who are inflating their own egos? Is this just live-action roleplay to make themselves sound terrifying to the 5,000 people listening?
Which happens a lot online.
It happens constantly. But what if it's not?
Yeah.
What if the Cronus Mafia is genuinely utilizing this chaotic, unmoderated, utterly dismissible public forum to incubate and announce a state-level zero-day exploit?
Okay, I want to pause on that term zero-day exploit
Why?
because it gets thrown around a lot in movies, but the actual mechanics of it are terrifying.
They really are.
A zero-day exploit isn't just a generic hack. It means the attackers have found a critical vulnerability in a piece of software
Right.
or a network appliance like. Maybe it's a specific firewall the Argentine government uses.
Right.
And the manufacturer of that software doesn't even know the flaw exists yet.
They have 0 days to patch it.
0 days. There's no defense because there's no patch. The attackers have a master key that no one else even knows has been cut.
That is exactly the level of capability the Cronus Mafia possesses.
But they're hiding it.
They are hiding that capability behind the aesthetic of a street gang.
Which is brilliant camouflage.
It is brilliantly effective because if you are a state intelligence agency and you mobilize national defense protocols and spin up incident response teams every single time an anonymous cartoon avatar makes a threat in a Twitter space,
You go bankrupt.
you will paralyze your own agencies in a week. You will burn through your entire budget chasing ghosts.
It's the ultimate boy who cried wolf scenario,
Right.
but scaled up to national security.
Exactly.
The noise is designed to exhaust the listener, so that when the real threat is spoken, it just goes entirely ignored.
But there was one person listening who did not ignore it.
Right.
One person who possessed a very specific type of psychological armor that allowed him to hear the signal clearly.
And this brings us to the central figure of this entire saga, Alberto Daniel Hill.
Yes.
Let's really dive into who Alberto Hill is, because his background fundamentally changes how we understand this threat.
It's critical to the story.
So, he is a Uruguayan-Italian cybersecurity and digital forensics expert.
Aw.
But his defining characteristic, the reason he matters so much in this deep dive, isn't just his technical resume.
No, it's something much darker.
It's the fact that he is the survivor of a 17-month wrongful imprisonment in the Uruguayan penal system.
Right. And to understand how Hill processes threat intelligence, we have to look really closely at the mechanics of that imprisonment, which took place back in 2017.
What exactly happened?
Well, the state did not build a case against him based on solid, irrefutable digital forensics.
No.
No, they built a case based on profound institutional technological illiteracy.
That is so frustrating.
Interpol agents raided his home based on completely unsubstantiated allegations of corporate extortion involving a medical provider.
And when they raided his house, what they found, and more importantly, how they interpreted what they found, is just staggering.
It really shows the gap in knowledge.
They confiscated a cache of blank magnetic cards, ledger hardware wallets, and a standard USB killer device.
Right.
And to a layperson, or to an untrained police officer, that might sound like a hacker's toolkit from a spy movie.
Oh, absolutely. And that is exactly how the prosecutor framed it.
But structurally, what are these things?
Mechanically, these items are incredibly mundane in the professional cybersecurity space.
Like the ledger wallets, for instance.
Right. Hill legally possessed the ledger wallets because he was an official cryptocurrency distributor.
Oh.
A ledger is simply a secure offline device used to store cryptographic private keys.
So that's not a hacking tool.
It isn't a tool used to hack other networks at all. It protects your own assets.
And what about the USB killer? Because the police held that up as this incredibly malicious cyber weapon. But how does that device actually work? It's not a virus, right?
It doesn't contain a virus at all.
No code.
No. A USB killer is a physical stress testing device. It looks exactly like a standard thumb drive,
Okay.
but internally it just contains a series of capacitors.
What does it do when you plug it in?
When you plug it into a computer's USB port, it rapidly draws power from the machine, stores that electrical charge in the capacitors, and then rapidly discharges a massive high-voltage surge back into the data lines of the device.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is designed to physically fry the motherboard in seconds.
Just break the hardware.
Exactly. It is a tool used by hardware engineers and penetration testers to see if a system's USB ports are properly protected against electrical surges.
Okay, so it doesn't steal data.
It does not steal data, it destroys hardware.
So they used a physical hardware testing tool to claim he was a master data thief.
Yes.
And the data theft allegation itself was just mathematically absurd.
Completely absurd.
The prosecutor claimed that Hill had stolen an entire massive medical database in an hour and a half.
Right.
But the actual network traffic logs, The hard forensic evidence of data moving from one place to another showed that only 150 megabytes of data had actually been transferred during that window.
Which is nothing. It is functionally impossible to exfiltrate a comprehensive corporate medical database within a 150 megabyte payload.
How big is 150 megabytes realistically?
It's roughly the size of a few dozen high-resolution photographs or maybe a single short video file.
So barely anything.
It is a drop in the ocean compared to an enterprise database. The math simply did not align with the accusation.
But the judge didn't care.
The judge completely ignored the technical impossibility, threw him into pretrial detention for 17 months, and denied him essential psychiatric medication, subjecting him to severe cognitive and emotional distress.
It is a profound nightmare. The system completely railroaded him based on a fundamental misunderstanding of basic technology.
Exactly.
But how does a 17-month stint in a Uruguayan prison connect to him sitting in a 5,000-person X space in 2026, listening to people threaten Argentina?
Well, it connects through a concept the intelligence briefings define as his trauma-informed cyber mindset.
That's a powerful term.
It is. See, most professionals in the corporate cybersecurity world suffer from a psychological blind spot known as normalcy bias.
Normalcy bias, right? That's the psychological mechanism that kicks in during a disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, well, right.
Where the fire alarm is blaring in your office building. You physically smell smoke,
Yeah.
but you still casually pack up your laptop and, finish your coffee because your brain refuses to accept that a life-threatening event is actually happening to you.
That is the perfect analogy. We rely on the stability of our institutions.
We want to feel safe.
We deeply want to believe that the police investigate thoroughly, that the courts are impartial, and that a bunch of anonymous teenagers screaming over reggaeton on the internet cannot possibly possess the capability to cripple a sovereign nation's infrastructure.
Right.
We suffer from what analysts call the Shenzhen illusion of safety.
The Shenzhen illusion.
Yeah, the deceptive belief that because our surrounding technology is sleek, modern, and convenient, the underlying systems holding it all together are inherently secure and impenetrable.
But Alberto Hill had that illusion violently stripped away from him.
Violently.
The system he trusted betrayed him. The police didn't understand the evidence, the judge didn't care about the math, and the safety net failed completely.
And because of that trauma, Hill fundamentally understands how fast and how arbitrarily institutional frameworks can collapse.
He sees the fragility.
Exactly. He operates as the meta-analyst of this digital underground. While the guys in the corporate suites look at the OpFest network and laugh at their slang, Hill is listening to the underlying mechanics of their threats.
He's cutting through the noise.
He recognizes that legal capability does not always wear a suit, and it doesn't always announce itself through formal, polished channels.
Sometimes state-level threats scream memes into a microphone.
Exactly right.
Which is exactly why, when he heard that specific Cronus Mafia affiliate threaten the Argentine government, he didn't just log off.
No, he did not.
He went on the offensive.
He took action.
On March 19th, 2026, Alberto Hill publishes what the source documents describe as a highly detailed threat intelligence flash on X.
Right.
He puts it all out there publicly. He explicitly warns of an imminent cyber threat to Argentine digital infrastructure. He names the origin point, this decentralized LATAM cyber underground X base.
He lays it all out.
He names the threat vector, high-volume data exfiltration. And he specifically names the actor, the Cronus Mafia.
He essentially throws up a massive, undeniable digital flare.
Yeah.
He stakes his hard-won professional reputation on the credibility of a threat made in the middle of an absolute digital circus. He forces the issue into the public eye.
And the immediate reaction from the public and the broader corporate cybersecurity community is incredibly telling.
It's depressing, really.
They don't rally behind him, they mock him.
Right.
There is a specific interaction in the intelligence files that captures this perfectly. A user named Krypton, operating under the handle at ElmusBlacko36483, replies directly to Hill's urgent, detailed warning.
And Krypton's response is a textbook manifestation of that normalcy bias we just discussed.
What does he say?
He replies, quote, "Se están quedando sin cosas que inventar ya.
Meaning?
They are running out of things to invent. Ha ha."
It's just complete dismissal.
Total dismissal.
They treat Hill like a conspiracy theorist standing on a street corner with a cardboard sign.
Krypton is constructing an epistemic wall. He is representing the broader skepticism of the corporate sector.
They just can't believe it.
They look at the source, this chaotic, unmoderated audio room filled with trolls, and they conclude that nothing mathematically lethal could possibly originate from such a juvenile environment.
They think it's impossible.
They view Hill as a traumatized, paranoid analyst who is crying wolf over internet banter. They refuse to accept the reality that the threat landscape has evolved beyond their sanitized models.
It's so much easier to laugh at the guy warning you about the fire than it is to actually check the exit.
Oh, absolutely.
Because admitting that a group of anonymous accounts blasting bad music can actually paralyze a country means admitting that the institutions designed to protect us are failing.
And people will do mental gymnastics to avoid facing that reality.
Unfortunately for Argentina, and unfortunately for the corporate analysts who mocked him, the reality of network vulnerabilities does not care about our psychological comfort.
Not even a little bit.
Because Krypton's laughter barely had time to fade from the timeline before the unthinkable actually happened. The threat materialized.
It didn't take long at all.
Fast forward just a few days from Hill's public warning. We're looking at a piece of visual evidence from the intelligence files titled invitate.jpg.
Right, the screenshot.
It is a screenshot capturing a massive, sovereign cyber attack unfolding in real time. An account named at A Nerd in Uruguay tags Alberto Hill publicly, drawing his attention to the event.
And the visual is just stark.
What are we looking at in this image?
It is the official primary website of the Ciudad de Catamarca.
Which is a major municipality in Argentina.
Yes. But the site hasn't just got offline. It has been completely defaced.
The mechanics of a defacement are fascinating to me. It's not just a server crash, right?
No. The attackers have breached the web server's defenses, gained administrative control, and actively replaced the foundational index file of the website.
So they wiped it out.
They have wiped away the government's digital face and replaced it with their own.
And in this case, the screen has been turned entirely black.
Entirely black.
Dominating the center of the page is this massive, menacing skull graphic. And directly beneath it, in stark, undeniable white letters, is the signature, hacked by Cronus.
The Cronus Mafia, exactly who the voice in the chaotic X space said it would be.
Exactly who Alberto Hill warned the world it would be.
Right.
But they don't just leave a skull and run away. They treat the defaced government website like a public billboard.
They really do.
They leave a manifesto. They explicitly state that the security of the Argentine state is terrible, openly mocking the government's defenses.
Rub that in.
But the most chilling part isn't the insult. It's the counter they place on the screen.
Yes, the counter.
The counter explicitly states that this highly visible defacement is just a distraction. It shows 005 databases.
And that number 005 databases is the true lethal payload of this attack.
The skull is just for show.
The defacement is just the loud explosion at the front gates. The real damage is the exfiltration happening in the back end.
To put that in perspective for you listening, data exfiltration isn't like smashing a window and running away. It is an incredibly complex, quiet process.
It takes time and skill.
You have to locate the sensitive databases, tax records, citizen medical histories, internal government communications.
And then you have to package that data into compressed files.
Right.
You have to trick the network's egress filters into thinking this massive outward flow of information is just normal web traffic.
Which is really hard to do.
It's very hard. And then you have to slowly, methodically siphon it all out to an external command control server controlled by the attackers.
And the Cronus Mafia is publicly announcing that they have already completed that silent process.
They're saying it's done.
They have secured 5 entire municipal databases, and they are fully prepped and ready to be leaked to the public if their demands are not met.
It's checkmate.
The psychological whiplash of this moment is just incredible.
Oh, imagine being Krypton right now.
Right. Overnight, the entire narrative flips. Alberto Hill transitions instantly from being the paranoid outsider, the traumatized guy crying wolf, to being the only intelligence broker on the board who accurately mapped the threat vector.
The multi-million-dollar corporate cybersecurity apparatus failed completely.
Entirely.
State intelligence agencies missed it. The only person who got it right was the guy listening to the noise of the cybercolas.
It fundamentally forces a paradigm shift.
It really does. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Hill's trauma-informed cyber mindset is not paranoia.
It's accurate predictive modeling.
Exactly. It proves that the OpFez network and the Cronus Mafia affiliates embedded within it are not just teenagers making memes.
They are an active, lethal, highly capable syndicate that has successfully compromised national infrastructure.
They are very real.
They are real.
Yeah.
And if we accept that they possess this level of immense, sovereign, compromising technical capability, we have to look very closely at how they use that capability against individuals who cross them.
This is where it gets incredibly personal.
Because if they can do this to a nation state, what do they do to a single person?
They destroy them.
Which brings us to the dark heart of the Bombitas del Gobierno audio files and the brutal destruction of a man named Hector Lopez.
Yeah. And to understand why Alberto Hill's next move in this saga is so incredibly dangerous, we must analyze the tactical execution of Hector Lopez.
So who is Hector Lopez?
Well, Lopez represents the absolute antithesis of the op-fizz underground.
Okay.
According to the intelligence briefings, he's a well-known Mexican ethical hacker.
Okay, so a legitimate guy.
Right. He is the founder of an organization called OIIE. He operates as a digital broker, and he is a very public podcaster who runs a show called the Hula del Noob.
So he is the quintessential corporate cybersecurity professional.
Exactly.
He wears the sombrero blanco, the white hat. He has the certifications. He uses the clean corporate jargon, and he is incredibly publicly antagonistic toward the underground networks.
He does not like them at all.
He uses his platforms to loudly dismiss them. He calls them lamers. He calls them pendejones. He calls them cibercholos.
Right. He minimizes their technical capabilities to elevate his own corporate standing.
Which seems like an extraordinarily dangerous game to play.
It is remarkably foolish. You are actively provoking a decentralized network that suffers from a profound collective inferiority complex, but possesses cartel-level doxing and extortion capabilities.
It's poking the bear.
It's poking a bear that has a digital sniper rifle.
Wow. And when Lopez finally enters the Bombitas del Gobierno space, a digital room completely controlled by the people he has been locking, they don't engage him in a polite debate about network security.
No, they execute a digital ambush.
How do they do that?
The dossiers classify their tactic as algorithmic manipulation and mob dynamics.
What does that mean in practice?
They weaponize the very architecture of the platform against him. It's similar to acoustic feedback in a stadium.
Okay.
If you place a few people with megaphones in strategic locations, they can create a wall of sound that completely drowns out a single person standing in the middle of the field with a regular microphone.
Right.
They use coordinated accounts to constantly talk over him, to mute him, to flood the auditory processing of the 5,000 listeners, creating an illusion of overwhelming hostile consensus.
They do not need to break through his corporate firewalls.
Yeah.
They're breaking his psychology in real time.
Exactly.
And the accusations they hurl at him during this ambush are not just the standard internet trolling insults.
They are heavily targeted.
They are targeted, systematic strikes designed to dismantle his life, his business, and his freedom.
They go for the throat immediately.
First, they go for total moral destruction. Multiple voices in the audio feed repeatedly scream over him, accusing Lopez of being a groomer and a violin, which is severe regional slang for a rapist.
They are loudly, publicly accusing him of preying on minors in front of an audience of thousands.
It is character assassination by sheer volume.
And it doesn't stop there.
But then, they escalate the attack from moral destruction to lethal kinetic danger.
This is where it crosses into the real world.
An analyst embedded deeply within the op-phase group, a man named Mel Morera, takes the microphone. And Morera brings up a chillingly specific detail. He cites Expediente 174732.
Which is an actual official Mexican government investigation folder.
That is insane.
Yes. Morera publicly links Hector Lopez to the intellectual logistics of a literal cartel assassination.
A real murder.
A real murder. He accuses Lopez of being involved in the murder of Raul Robles, alias Megabyte, who is the founder of a collective called Hacking Mexico and was gunned down in reality.
This is where the internet stops being a game.
It's life or death now.
They were telling 5,000 listeners, an audience that undoubtedly includes actual cartel affiliates monitoring the digital underground, that this corporate ethical hacker has blood on his hands.
And they keep going.
They accuse Lopez of colluding with the Mexican government, specifically naming a highly controversial official, Omar Garcia Harfuch.
Right.
And simultaneously, they accuse him of colluding with the Sinaloa cartel, specifically pointing to a lethal cyber mercenary faction run by a figure known as Hacker Damaso.
And the geopolitical context of Mexico is critical here to understand the weight of this.
Right. How does that change things?
The intelligence documents describe the region as a paraíso, a paradise for cybercriminals operating under a state of cynical stability.
We'll talk more about cynical stability later, but it's basically a managed criminal state.
Exactly. The boundaries between state intelligence operatives, corporate fixers, and cartel hitmen are incredibly porous, almost non-existent.
So everyone is kind of working together, or at least looking the other way.
Right. So by publicly tying Lopez to these specific murders and these specific factions, they are not just trying to get his podcast canceled.
They're effectively painting a real-world kinetic target on his back.
They are inviting a physical reprisal against him.
It is terrifying. And then, after threatening his life, after threatening his freedom, they go for the final, ultimate professional humiliation.
The programming duel.
Yes. A user in the space who goes by Mr. Bank challenges Lopez directly. The $25,000 challenge.
Mr. Bank demands a live, camera-on, screen-sharing programming duel.
Like, prove it right now.
Exactly. They challenge Lopez to code from scratch, live in front of the audience. They put $25,000 on the table, and they accuse Lopez of being a complete fraud.
They claim his corporate certifications are meaningless.
That he just sells Crucito's fake, overpriced little courses.
And that he leeches off the hard work of actual street-level hackers. They explicitly claim he doesn't actually know how to code when stripped of his corporate tools.
It's the ultimate power play.
They're dragging the guy with the pristine white hat down into the mud and demanding he fight them bare knuckle.
It is a fascinating sociological tactic, honestly. The analysts in the dossier note that the swarm uses what is called Eurocentric epistemology against him, but they invert it.
Let's break that term down because it sounds incredibly dense.
It does, but it's a simple concept.
Eurocentric epistemology, in this context, refers to the idea that valid knowledge only comes from formal, sanitized, Western-style institutions.
Degrees, certifications, corporate offices, compliance manuals.
That's the framework Lopez uses to justify his superiority.
Exactly. Lopez relies on that formal epistemology to call them lemurs because they don't have the paperwork.
But the underground inverts it.
They completely flip it. They frame his corporate certified ethical hacking as a sanitized, privileged farce.
They contrast his theoretical knowledge against their raw, cartel-adjacent street-level reality.
They are saying your certificates don't matter here. If you are a real hacker, prove your worth in our arena on our terms right now.
And Lopez crumbles.
He falls apart.
The audio is just a complete, unmitigated psychological slaughter. They shout him down, they relentlessly mock his internet connection dropping, they accuse him of treason and murder, and he has no defense against the sheer chaos of the mob.
None at all.
So, this raises a screaming logical question for anyone analyzing the situation.
Of that.
If this OpFest network has the capability to do this to a well-known public figure, systematically destroying his reputation, tying him to cartel mergers, and professionally humiliating him in front of 5,000 people, why on earth would anyone ever willingly step foot into their digital territory again?
It seems like suicide.
Which brings us to the climax of this entire narrative. We have to bring the timeline exactly to the present day.
Right now.
We are looking at a source document dated March 25, 2026. Literally yesterday.
Yesterday.
It is an image file named Invitations FBAC's Team, SBACHE. It's a public tweet from Mel Morera.
The exact same intelligence analyst embedded within the underground who just publicly accused Hector Lopez of murder.
The very same guy. Morera tweets out an invitation to a new X space. But he doesn't just broadcast it generally. He specifically tags and addresses one single man.
Alberto Daniel Hill.
The text of the tweet reads, quote, Hola Daniel Hill. Este jueves y se tocarán varios temas y estarán presentes varios teams. Todos están cordialmente invitados. Idioma de charla español.
Translating that for us. Hello, Daniel Hill. This Thursday, several topics will be discussed and various teams will be present. Everyone is cordially invited. Language of the chat is Spanish.
He includes the specific logistical details. The space is scheduled for Thursday, March 26, 2026, tonight at 9:30 p.m. Mexico time.
But the most important piece of this invitation is hidden in the metadata, in the explicit theme of the space that Morera set up.
What's the theme?
The listed theme for tonight's space is Hector Lopez at HackerSoaec no acepto reto de programación.
Meaning, Hector Lopez did not accept the programming challenge.
They are hosting a victory lap.
This isn't a neutral meeting ground at all.
No, this is a public celebration of their total destruction of Hector Lopez.
It is the digital equivalent of mounting his head on a spike outside the city gates. And they are inviting Alberto Hill to come look at it.
And how does Alberto Hill, the man who just proved they are capable of hacking sovereign nations, respond to this invitation?
His response is immediate and is public. He replies directly to the tweet, quote, "Cuenten conmigo. Saludos, Mel."
Count on me. Greetings, Mel.
He accepts.
He accepts the invitation.
I have to admit, as someone reading this timeline, I am profoundly confused by this move.
It seems crazy.
Isn't Alberto playing with absolute lethal fire here? He is voluntarily, cheerfully walking into the exact same digital meat grinder that just chewed up Hector Lopez and spit him out.
He knows exactly what they can do.
He knows they are lethal.
He is the one who warned the world they hacked Catamarca. What happens if they decide to turn that 5,000-person mob on him? Why would he accept this?
Well, to understand this standoff, we really have to conduct a deep psychological and geopolitical read on this exchange from both sides of the digital table. Let's start with the group's perspective. The OpFez network, Morera, Hacker Damaso, they just took down a nation's databases. They publicly humiliated their loudest critic. Why do they even want Hill in the room?
Right, they have raw power. They don't need a Uruguayan analyst to validate them.
Or so you'd think.
But they actually do. Power without recognition is hollow.
Oh, okay.
They prove their lethal kinetic capability with the Argentina defacement, but what they crave now, what every insurgency, digital or physical, ultimately craves, is legitimacy.
They want to be seen as real players.
Exactly. They want the globally recognized, prison-hardened meta-analyst in the room. They want the guy who survived the state apparatus, the only analyst who accurately called the Argentina hack before anyone else believed it, to witness their victory lap.
Because if Alberto Hill treats them seriously, it validates them.
Precisely. His physical or digital presence in their space transforms them from a gang of dismissible cybercolos into recognized geopolitical actors.
Okay, that makes terrifying sense from the cartel's perspective. It's a power play to gain formal recognition. But what about Hill's perspective? He knows the risks better than anyone. Why give them that legitimacy? Why risk his own psychological safety?
Because of his adversarial threat hunting mindset.
Meaning he has to hunt them where they live.
Exactly. Hill knows that avoiding them, blocking them, or pretending they don't exist simply creates an epistemic wall. It blinds you to their next move.
So by voluntarily entering the lion's den, he is practicing what the intelligence sources call radical transparency.
Yes.
He's not going in there to fight them. He's not going in to be a white knight. He's going in to listen.
That's it. He is gathering raw, primary source intelligence, OSINT, open source intelligence, directly at the origin point.
He isn't relying on filtered, sanitized reports from corporate analysts who consistently underestimate the threat.
Because we saw what happened when he relied on them. They mocked him.
Right. He is looking the threat right in the eye. He's playing continental chess.
He is using his presence, his unique credibility as a survivor of state injustice, to mediate, to observe, and potentially to gather the necessary data to prevent the next Argentina-level attack.
He's placing himself directly in the crosshairs of a cartel-linked digital mob because he knows that after his time in prison, no one else has the psychological armor required to survive the room.
It is a breathtaking level of professional courage.
Or absolute madness.
Or maybe both. It is the reality of modern threat intelligence.
Let's step back and look at the massive arc we have traced today. We started in what looked like a chaotic, juvenile internet chat room filled with memes, slang, and overlapping insults.
Just a bunch of noise.
We witnessed how that specific noise was weaponized to camouflage a legitimate, sovereign data breach against the government of Argentina, executed flawlessly by the Cronus Mafia.
Then we saw the brutal psychological execution of Hector Lopez.
A corporate hacker who fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the threat he was mocking. And now we are watching Alberto Daniel Hill, a wrongfully imprisoned analyst, step voluntarily back into the fire tonight to gather intelligence from the very actors who just flexed their power on a national scale.
It's an incredible story, and it brings this entire narrative right back to you, the listener.
Why does this matter to the average person?
Because it is incredibly easy to look at your phone, to scroll through social media, and think of the internet as a separate, harmless, highly moderated reality.
That the bad stuff only happens in movies.
Right. But the digital world you interact with every single day has a lethal geopolitical underbelly.
The line between a random Twitter troll using regional slang and a state-level cyber mercenary executing massive data exfiltration is practically non-existent.
Ignoring the noise is no longer a viable security strategy for nations.
And it certainly isn't for individuals.
No, it's not.
And this leads us to a final, provocative thought from the source material that we want to leave you to mull over. It's a concept the intelligence analysts refer to as cynical stability.
Right, cynical stability. If we connect all of these localized events, the hacking of Argentina, the cartel links in Mexico, the public destruction of digital brokers to the global macro environment, a very dark, very intentional picture emerges.
What does that picture look like?
Well, the intelligence dossiers heavily suggest that the United States, utilizing advanced zero-click spyware tools like Pegasus alongside massive tech entities, likely had a near-total visibility into these spaces.
Pegasus being the tool that can silently infect a phone without the user even clicking a link.
Exactly. Granting a government full root access to the device's microphone, camera, and encrypted messages.
They have eyes everywhere.
They see actors like Hacker Damaso, they see the Cronus Mafia, they hear the explicit threats being made in these public spaces.
And yet they do nothing.
They allow it to happen. Because the geopolitical strategy dictates that maintaining a managed criminal state is preferable to the total economic collapse that a surgical, absolute crackdown would precipitate.
They deliberately allow the noise, the extortion, and these massive shadow economies to exist so long as the broader global financial system doesn't entirely break.
They're managing the decay rather than curing the disease.
That is just chilling. The institutions designed to protect us, the corporate firewalls, the federal intelligence agencies, the international police forces, are deliberately looking the other way.
They are managing the risk, not eliminating it.
So the question we leave you with tonight, as Alberto Hill logs back into that space, is this. When the guards deliberately abandon the watchtower, who is left to guard the gates, is the only defense we have left the independent, trauma-hardened analysts willing to walk directly into the fire, simply because no one else will?
It's a terrifying landscape.
It really is. Thank you for joining us at the table for this deep dive. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and we'll see you next time.